Corey here with Corey's Coins LLC in San Diego. This is not financial advice. This is just my personal opinion. I am not a financial advisor. Disclaimer. I wanted to go through, I know I had promised you guys a while back that I would kind of go through the kind of how my Helium Hotspot is working. It is a Bobcat 300, and I'm up here in Alpine, San Diego, so I'm at about 2,500 feet elevation, and I have a clear line of sight to basically everywhere, to where I've even gotten hits from like absurdly far away, all the way up almost into Canada. So but I wanted to kind of walk you through just kind of using the Helium Explorer. So anybody can go on the internet. You can go to explorer.helium.com, and all of these Helium hotspots are public. So you can go to your area and just simply find who else is there, click on it. You know, it gives you kind of a general area of where those hotspots are, and all of their actual performance data is public also. So, you know, let's just click on a random green square or green, what is that, pentagon? So it looks like winning, walnut, wasp, and obviously all of your hotspot miners will have their own little random name. Usually the very last word is an animal of some kind, and then a food is the next one before that, and then it's just like an action word before that. So all of these will all have different names, and you don't get to make these names up. These are tied to whichever miner you have. So let's see, we just clicked on a random one in the Explorer webpage. And yeah, so this thing has a suboptimal transmit scale. So generally what's probably happening here is this person doesn't have their antenna either positioned correctly, or it's behind a window, but that window still has the metal screen in it, which is a no-no. Or they might just be in an apartment and they don't really have good line of sight anywhere. I mean, you can see that, you know, they're obviously not communicating much with anything back here, but they are able to communicate somewhat with stuff in this direction mostly, and some random ones in this direction. So they obviously don't have clear line of sight there, and we can look at it usually tells you on here also if we do update 4 days. So this had an update 4 days ago. Another thing to keep in mind, that if you have a Helium hotspot that says that it's relayed, you need to fix the port in your router. I don't remember which port it is, but there's a specific port you need to forward in your router, so that way communication can go back and forth through your router to transmit and data packets and all that stuff. So all of your mining profits are going to be cut, you know, in half or less if you have issues with your stuff being relayed, which essentially means that all of the stuff that would have gone to you, you're now having to use the closest miner that's not relayed, and they're actually doing the transmission, so they're having to use their internet connection for your proof of coverage. So now you're sharing your rewards because you're not able to do any of that on your own because your router isn't set up correctly. So and also on here you can see that this is a 1.2 dBi antenna, which I don't even know how they got that antenna, because I'm pretty sure the normal Bobcat is like a 5.6. So so this would have to be kind of a subpar miner. This is definitely, it's weird that it comes up as a Bobcat still. So who knows why that's happening, but you can obviously look at your earnings here. So let's say 30 days of earnings, you know, they made $88, and You can look at their activity, and you can see, what kind of beacons they're hitting, witness beacons, and you can also find like nearby miners. But here, let's go ahead and type into the search. So you can go on there and type in your hotspot miner name, but for me, my hotspot miner name is soaring, action word, pear, fruit, food, llama, amazing animal, mammal. Huh, look at that. Okay, so this is my hotspot. So up here in Alpine, I have clear line of sight pretty much anywhere west. And obviously you can see there's not really much to communicate east because I am, pretty far back in the chain. But also I have a 10 dBi high quality antenna with extremely high quality cabling connecting that antenna. The shortest span possible, I think, is a 15-foot cable, and it's a over 400 rated cable. So you're not gonna get a lot of dBi depletion in the distance that your communication is having to travel to your miner. So basically, like with the cables, you're going to be looking at diminishing your dBi rating depending on how far that signal has to travel and how inefficient that traveling really is. So, I mean, if I had an excellent, crazy cable, maybe I could go 30 feet and it wouldn't diminish it hardly at all. But if I have a crappy cable, I mean, I might be able to only go 6 feet, and it may be cutting my dBi in half. So I have no idea. So that's one of the things to keep in mind. All of this stuff is not created equal. Antenna placement is extremely important. So this is about 30 feet off the ground. It's mounted on a post that's attached to the side of this big 30 by 60 steel building that we're in right now. And that has clear line of sight to basically everywhere down below me. And I'm using a really high quality cable. It's a 15-foot cable. It's connected directly into the Bobcat 300. And that Bobcat 300 is not using Wi-Fi. It's got a direct Ethernet connection to a network hub. So it's got everything going for it that you could possibly have going for it. And obviously it shows. So, I mean, if you look at like my 30-day earnings, I've made over $100 here in earnings, and I'm communicating with hotspots way out. We can go ahead and click on our activity, and you can see that my antenna is actually reaching out. Here's 39 kilometers. These things are going, there's some of them that are over 100 kilometers all the way out. So they're definitely seeing pretty far out, but you'll get more rewards based on kind of data packets that you're actually processing, because usually those data packets are from people who are actually using the network in your area. So say there's somebody hiking in Alpine and they're using like a GPS system or their GPS dog collar. They're hiking with their dog, and that system is using my hotspot to transmit, to basically create the buffer zone between where they're at and where maybe the main network hub is or whatever. So so I'm actually getting those encrypted data packets, which would be their signals that they're getting from their GPS, and I'm the one transmitting those down to wherever they need to go or to whoever they need to go to in order for that specific piece of hardware to function properly. So, this is all part of getting all the HNT stuff, and you kind of, it's fun to do, and these things only use about 100 watts a month or so, or excuse me, not 100 watts a month, but they generally use about the same electricity as a 100-watt light bulb does in a month. So you're not going to be, you're not drawing a ton of power. They're easy to set up. Once you set them up and set up your router port, you're going to be good to go, and you can just kind of sit back, and there's always little things you can do to increase your output, which would be just, swapping out your antenna for a better one, increasing your line of sight for that antenna, swapping out your cabling for a better cabling, depending on how far away your antenna is from your actual miner. So it's always better to put your miner as close to the antenna as you can and simply run an Ethernet cable all the way to your miner, because you're going to get way less of a problem running Ethernet for 200 feet than you would if you had your antenna running for 200 feet, So if you have to put your miner in an area where you're not necessarily within range of your Wi-Fi, it's always better just to maybe throw a network hub and grab some networking cable and run an Ethernet out and some power, and just put that miner as close as you can to the antenna, and then put the antenna where it could be best used. I mean, even if you look at like the geography of where I'm at right now, obviously I don't need to be able to communicate with any of these people really, because number one, I'm not communicating with them anyway, and number two, they're in such random areas back here that all of the money that I'm going to be making is going to be proof of coverage increase with all of this already covered area, which is mostly where people are. This is where people live, right? So that's where all the data packets are going to get sent. So I could, in theory, just have a directional antenna. And if I wanted to do that, I could just point that antenna this way, which would give me a lot more acute range of that antenna and would increase probably my productivity, just because, right now I'm using a 10 dBi antenna, but it's 360, so it's transmitting 10 dBi in all these directions as well as in all the directions behind me, but it doesn't really need to be doing any of this stuff. So, essentially 50% of that antenna, transmit scale is not being used for really anything. So, in my particular case, it would probably be more efficient just to run a directional antenna and put it up there. And you could run, a larger antenna, one of those huge antennas you see in like old people's backyards that they're like drying clothes on, with like an old satellite dish that nobody uses. So keep that in mind. But we are doing really, really well for, how I have everything set up and the amount of activity that we do get out here. So, and on top of that, this is kind of a set it and forget it thing. We get all this stuff hooked up. You set up your port forwarding. And it just makes you money, and you don't really have to worry about it. So what's really cool too is like, every once in a while, money gets tied up with all of your crypto investments and whatnot, and this is not financial advice, but I'll forget that I even have these Helium miners running. It might be months and I'll forget, and then I'll remember like, oh, I should check on those, because they're not costing anything to run. They're using an internet connection, and you have an antenna on your roof. So I'll open that up and I'm like, oh crap, like I got $1,200 in here that I didn't even know about. Like, sweet, and with HNT for sure, it's probably best to just kind of keep it that way and leave it in there. But if there ever is a time where you're kind of like, man, like I really need to make sure I have money to, maybe pay for a kid's school trip or whatever you have going on, it's nice to know you kind of have something off in the background, out of sight, out of mind, that can kind of lend a little bit more financial stability, especially in, our current economic climate. It definitely helps just to have a little bit extra, a little bit of help goes a long ways right now. So, keep that stuff in mind. If you're looking for miners, obviously the Bobcat 300 is the, it's like the gold standard for HNT miners. I think they even have a Bobcat 500 that's coming out. If you ordered a synchro bit, like I ordered a synchro bit over 10 months ago, I still haven't gotten them. I ordered, I think, 4 or 5. of them. I actually ordered my Bobcat 300 over a month after I ordered the synchro bits, and the Bobcat obviously came, you know, a while ago when I posted the unboxing video. And so it's just, you know, it's kind of weird how all that stuff's working. Plus with synchro bit, like they've been doing a bunch of kind of cross work with other companies. So they're constantly like advertising, hey, we just partnered with this company or that company. Hey, we're giving out free miners as a promotion. I'm like, hey guys, how are you guys giving out free miners when I still haven't even got mine yet? You know? And on top of that, you can still go on there and order miners from Syncrobit, and they have a projected ship date of Q2 of this year. And it's like, dude, how are you saying that I can order a miner right now and it'll get here in under 5 months, but it's been 10 since I ordered my last order and I still haven't gotten them? They won't update you. They don't update their blogs. They don't update their shipping information. So I don't know. I honestly don't know what's going on with them. But at this point, you know, once I had the order and it's been 10 months, I'm not going to get a refund and leave. You might as well just let it sit there and wait for the miners to show up. So hopefully they'll show up soon. But, you know, I have access to quite a few properties up here, so I can put miners out other areas, and I'll be putting up some information on those as well as soon as I can get kind of like a group of miners spread out up here. And then we can see kind of the rewards on that and kind of how they communicate with each other. So that'll be neat to see that as well. But yeah, you generally want to look at your transmit scale. So anytime you have like a 1.0 transmit scale, that's really good. And anything less than like 0.5 is pretty bad. I mean, there's some 0.2s, 0.16s. I mean, we'll click on this guy right here that has, see how this hotspot is relayed? So the reason that's relayed is because his internet connection's not set up properly. And then the transmit scale obviously goes to crap. So he's communicating hardly anywhere. That's an extremely small area. So your profits are gone, essentially. You're not going to make hardly anything. I mean, even if you look at his 30-day earnings, he's at $52. And that's in, you know, what seems to be a pretty decent area to where, yeah, his antenna is probably pointed this direction, or there's probably a mountain behind him or whatever. I mean, there could be any reason, but I just wanted to give you guys an update on kind of how everything's going. The hotspot miner is working really well. It is earning really well. Is it earning, you know, twice what another one is earning with lesser resources? No, I don't think so. It's earning really well, but I think if it was in like the center of an actual full populated area, it would probably do a lot better with the resources that we have, like the 10 dBi antenna and it being so high up. But since we're kind of off on the side of the area, or the most populated cities like San Diego and all the way down there, it's not really working as well. But obviously our earnings are doing very well, and they're above average always. But yeah, we'll see how you know, everything kind of continues to build, because as more people grab miners in San Diego, you know, depending on if, you know, more people add miners here or down in Mexico, which we do a lot of transmitting all the way down to Mexico too. You know, as the network gets larger, essentially the miners that are set up like mine become more and more valuable, because they can transmit so much farther, to where even if you have like a miner around me that's not necessarily relayed, but it may be bouncing off of my miner to get all the way down here, you know, to, you know, 100 plus miles away, 300 miles away. So pretty cool. Hopefully you guys got something out of this video. I'll keep you posted when we get the other miners. I'll do an unboxing on those, and we'll see kind of how our earnings increase as we go, as we start adding more and more miners to our group of miners. So And I'll also show you on the app kind of how to check your profits and do all that stuff. And we can log into the web GUI on the Bobcat, and you can do kind of a ping test to ping other miners to see kind of how far out you reach with your mining stuff. So pretty cool. Hopefully you guys got something out of that video. Keep mining.